The storm rolled across the frozen plain with a voice that sounded like shaking metal. Liam had lived on the frontier world of Selam Ridge for 5 seasons, long enough to know the shift of the wind that warned of a blizzard before it arrived. He had stacked the firewood, sealed the shutters, checked the generator, and cooked a small pot of stew before the first wall of white swallowed the horizon. He expected a quiet night, alone with the wind and the hum of the heater. He did not expect anyone to reach his small hut through the storm. Not a trader, not a scout, and certainly not someone from beyond the ridge. Yet as he sat by the heater with a battered book in his hands, a violent knock slammed against his door. It sounded desperate. Soft at first, then frantic. Liam rose, grabbed the lantern, and unlatched the heavy metal bar. When the door swung open, the snow came in like a wave, and behind it stumbled a tall figure wrapped in shimmering cloth. The stranger collapsed across his threshold, trembling from the cold. He pulled the figure inside and shut the door against the storm. Then he realized the stranger was a woman. Her skin had an opal tint, faintly glowing under the lantern light. Her hair fell in silver strands over her face, and her eyes, when she tried to look up at him, reflected the light like polished stone. She looked nothing like a human colonist. She was clearly not from his settlement, or even his species dot. She came from another people. Entirely. Liam knelt beside her as she tried to push herself upright. Her hands shook. Her breath came in shallow gasps. She looked terrified, not only of the storm, but also of him. She pressed herself against the wall, her eyes wide, her body rigid. She spoke something in a language he could not understand, each word sharp and melodic. He raised both hands, palms shone, and kept his voice calm. "It's all right. I won't harm you. You're safe from the storm here." She did not understand the words, but she recognized the tone. Her trembling slowed, though she remained pressed against the wall. Liam moved slowly to the stove, ladled warm stew into a small bowl, and placed it near her without pushing it into her space. The scent drifted toward her. She watched him with deep caution. His hut was small and simple. A bunk bed against one wall, a cooking stove, a table, shelves lined with tools, a small generator in the corner. The heater hummed, radiating warmth. The alien woman scanned the room as if searching for hidden threats. Her gaze returned to him, wary but curious. He pointed to himself. "Liam." Then he pointed gently to her, a silent question. She hesitated. She touched her chest. "Roa." Liam repeated it softly. "Roa." She blinked once, surprised that he tried to say it correctly. Her posture eased a little. She reached for the bowl and sniffed it cautiously. She tasted a small spoonful, paused as if judging the flavor, then ate again with growing hunger. Liam watched her while giving her space, knowing that sudden gestures could frighten her. When she finished the food, she lifted the bowl slightly, a gesture that might have been thanks. He smiled. She watched the expression with a puzzled tilt of her head and a small spark of recognition. Perhaps her people smiled too. The storm roared harder outside. The walls groaned. Roa flinched, pressing her hands over her ears. Liam pointed to the window where snow raced across the glass and traced a simple motion with his finger to show that the storm was outside and they were safe inside. She watched his hand carefully, then relaxed fractionally. Her body settled near the heater, soaking in warmth. Liam offered her a blanket. She froze as he approached, so he set it on the floor beside her instead. After a moment, she pulled it around herself, clutching it as though it was treasure. She murmured something soft, almost a whisper. The fear in her eyes dimmed. As the hours passed, they exchanged gestures and small pieces of understanding. Roa tried to explain where she came from using motions. She shaped a dome above her head with her hands, pointed upward, then drew a spiral in the air. A ship, perhaps, or a settlement in the mountains. She then mimed something breaking, falling, crashing. Liam pieced together the idea that she had been traveling when something failed. The blizzard forced her to seek shelter. She watched him as he studied her motions, and a faint sense of trust began to form between them. When night deepened and the storm intensified, she startled at every loud crack of ice outside. Her fingers clutched the blanket tightly. Liam understood fear well. Life on the frontier world taught humans to respect storms, wildlife, and the unknown. He pointed to his hut again, then made a firm downward motion. Safe. She followed the gesture with her eyes and nodded faintly. Sleep came slowly. Roa curled near the heater. Liam stayed awake in the chair, keeping watch. He did not want her to wake to his movement and feel trapped. Yet as he dozed lightly, he felt her eyes on him. When he opened his own, she was studying him with a new expression. Curiosity rather than fear. By morning, the storm had weakened to gentle snow. Roa rose and moved to the window. Her hand brushed the glass. She spoke a soft line in her language, almost like a breath. Liam joined her, careful to keep distance. She looked at him, then at the storm's remnants. She pointed toward the outside, then shook her head. Too dangerous still. He understood and motioned for her to stay one more day until the weather cleared. She nodded reluctantly. Unease covered her features. She kept looking toward the door, anxiety pressing on her shoulders. Something out there troubled her beyond the storm. The day passed with slow but steady progress. Roa began to understand simple gestures that Liam used. When he boiled water for tea, she watched every step with keen attention. When he repaired a small device, she leaned closer, fascinated by human tools. Her fear of him was fading, replaced by interest in his actions. Liam tried to study her discreetly. Her skin had a faint shimmer that shifted with light. Her eyes saw more than human eyes. When she looked at the small lamp, he noticed a subtle adjustment in her pupils to match brightness. She moved with grace, even in the cramped hut. Everything about her spoke of a people who lived with a sense of harmony and precision. When she attempted to speak to him again, she used slow words, spaced apart, hoping he might learn their meaning. He repeated some sounds, stumbling through them. Roa gave him a rare small smile at his effort. Something about her smile was both calming and strong. It held gratitude. Night settled again. The storm had ended, but the wind still carried ice. Roa sat across from him at the table. She tapped her fingers on the surface, tapping once, then twice, then 3 times, as if counting. Liam realized she was trying to form a pattern. A rhythm became their shared language. He answered with a simple tap. She responded with 2. They built small patterns until their improvised dialogue filled the quiet room. Roa lifted her hand to draw a small shape in the air. A long curve, then a short line, then another. She repeated it. Liam realized it might be a symbol used by her people. She tapped the same pattern on the table. He copied it. She nodded with visible relief that he understood something. Their shared signs and rhythms formed a fragile bridge. She no longer sat with her back pressed to the wall. She no longer flinched at every step he made. She began to trust him. Near midnight, a faint alarm from the ridge perimeter sounded. Liam rose quickly. Roa tensed at once. She rushed to the door, panic rising in her eyes. She spoke rapidly, pointing outside, then toward herself, then toward the mountains. Her voice trembled. Something was coming. Liam armed himself with a flare launcher and opened the small lookout panel in the wall. Through the snow, he saw faint lights hovering in the distance. They swept slowly across the plain. A search party, not human. Roa's breath shook. She stepped close, pointing urgently at the lights, then toward herself. Liam realized the searchers were not looking for a lost traveler to rescue her. They chased her. She grabbed his sleeve and shook her head, warning him not to signal them. Fear returned to her face, sharper than before. She whispered her name again, as if pleading for him to understand. Then she pressed her hand against her chest, and motioned toward the lights, then drew a sharp line across her throat. Liam understood. If they found her, she would be in danger. He shut the lookout panel. The lights passed without stopping. Roa sank to the floor in relief. Liam offered her the water flask. She drank slowly. Her hands steadied again. She looked up at him with an expression far different from when she first entered. There was trust now. Trust born from shelter, warmth, and refusal to betray her fear. The next morning brought clear skies. The storm had passed, leaving the plain smooth with snow. Roa stood by the door, ready to leave. She touched his arm lightly, a gesture of thanks. Liam nodded and opened the door. She stepped into the snow, paused, and turned back to him. She reached into her cloak and handed him a small crystal. It was warm to the touch and glowed faintly. She pointed to his heart, then to the crystal, then bowed her head. A gift of gratitude from her people. Roa walked across the plain with steps light as drifting leaves. When she reached the ridge, she turned once more. Liam raised his hand in farewell. She raised hers in return. As she vanished into the horizon, he held the crystal and wondered about the world she came from. The bridge they built in one night was small, made of gestures and warmth, but still real. A human and an alien, stranded by a storm, shared shelter and hope. Days later, Liam installed the crystal on his table. It pulsed with a gentle light each night, a rem.